Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Uncanny Treks. We are continuing our long-delayed trek through the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee Fantastic Four run. A few months ago, we talked about the first epic collection of the Jack Kirby run, Volume 1, the world's greatest comic magazine. We are following up after a long detour through Hickman Avengers and Al Ewing Avengers. We are coming back to the Kirby FF run. We are talking about the second epic collection of Kirby FF. It's the Master Plan of Doctor Doom. That includes annual number 1 and issues 19 through 32. If you didn't listen to our first episode on the world's greatest comic magazine, you should go back and listen to it. But we're going to treat these epics more like we treat our season recaps of TV shows, where we quickly run down each issue, maybe make a couple comments about it, say if we think it's good, great, or dumpster fire. And then we will have some awards for this run of Fantastic Four comics, this couple years of Fantastic Four comics. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Doing all right, Bob. I'm glad you did point out that we are going to do quick summaries of these and treat it like a season recap, because I'll be honest with you, reading these comics, it's a lot of reading if you've never gone back and read comics in the 60s. Compared to today's comics, it's like reading a radio script. If you read these out loud and recorded it with voices, you wouldn't really have to do much editing to have a radio show. They explain everything going on, even though there's a picture. The medium of comics is different today. It's much more focused on what you're seeing on the page as opposed to, even though what's on these pages is beautiful, they did a phenomenal job. That really shows the caliber of comics from the past versus what we've got going on now with some of the more recent mainline comics.
I always tell my students when they're reading old comics to remember there's a lot of redundancy between the narration boxes and the dialogue and the art. And so I always just tell them to focus on the art, not the narration or the dialogue.
I wonder, too, if they were trying to hit as large an age demographic as they could. But, okay, younger kids aren't going to be able to read much, but they can follow the pictures, whereas adults reading it are going to want more bang for their buck as far as word count goes. They hadn't found that happy medium yet. They were doing everything they could. They make it look amazing. And I'm not saying the reading is incredibly difficult. It's just there's a lot more to read, and it's describing what's going on a page that you're looking at.
It's also that a lot of the comics writing comes out of the pulp fiction industry too, right? So the norm for comics writers was to be purple, overwrought, to write like they were being paid per word, even if they weren't being paid per word.
Nowadays, you don't have thought bubbles and stuff like that anymore, whereas here, where we have thought bubbles going on.
I like a thought bubble.
I've never had an issue with it. Then again, we grew up in the 80s and 90s with these comics.
We're starting with annual number 1, and the beautiful thing about so many of these is that we don't even really have to do a plot summary because the title basically gets it. So we got annual number 1, Submariner versus the Human Race. And Matt, I did just want to call our attention to on this cover, it says Spider-Man waits within these pages. That was a really great cover. And I was looking back at scans of the original issues, but I think you were looking at a digital copy of the Epic. In the original annual, they reprint the Spider-Man and Fantastic Four story from Amazing Spider-Man number 1. Did that happen in the Epic you were looking at, or did it not have like Spider-Man in the FF?
It did. It had it.
Okay.
Which was a fun comic. And this is also a way to get them to purchase other superhero comics because you're bringing in these heroes. You have so many team-ups in this particular volume that we're talking about today.
Yeah, it is funny. We'll see this as we keep going. The Fantastic Four really is a cornerstone of the early Marvel universe. It's the big book, even though Avengers are structurally the Justice League because they're getting together all the different heroes. Well, the Fantastic Four is clearly the most popular, most successful. All the other characters have to do a guest appearance in the pages of the Fantastic Four. It starts off the collection right in that sense. And then the main thing I just wanted to emphasize from Fantastic Four Annual 1, Matt, is that we get Namor in a helmet crown and royal robe, which was great. And we also get Nikita Khrushchev, the actual Nikita Khrushchev, calling Reed Richards at the UN a capitalist lie. Those two things made me love the annual.
That was awesome. One thing I want to point out, too, is that I guess Submariner was meant to be this master of disguise because in his first appearance, he's disguised as a homeless person.
Well, in fairness, he doesn't know he's disguised.
Well, right, but he's got a completely different look. Here he impersonates someone at the UN, and he pulls the mask off. Oh, it was a guy that looked like Santa Claus, but now it's Submariner. I also want to point out the technology in this issue was way beyond its time, and I love it. The way that they trap the Fantastic underwater using, I guess the easiest way to say this is it's literally a condom. A big plastic bloated thing, and they're like, we can't puncture it or we won't survive. We have to keep the air in here. It's fascinating that they were coming out with these things at that time. That's how they're going to get them underwater. not just some magic pill or something we've seen before, which I think is what we saw in the previous issue. They had some oxygen pill that only lasted an hour or two. And then also, this annual provides a gallery of villains, which I wanted to highlight. This is interesting. If you were collecting comics at the time and weren't able to get all the issues, you could keep up with who had already appeared, what issue they appeared in.
The very common thing at the time. The first Amazing Spider-Man annual, which comes out after this, does the same thing. The gallery of villains from the first 16 or 20 or however many Amazing Spider-Man issues.
Then there's also an interesting page in this annual, actually 2 pages, about its questions and answers about the Fantastic Four. And these are things that people still ask today, but they're answered way back when in this first annual. What is Mr. Fantastic's limit as far as he can stretch? This clearly states 300 feet.
Good to know.
300 feet or 100 yards. That was fascinating. It also talks about Johnny Storm's ability to fly, which has always been a thing that people have asked about. There's other limits to that. But one specific thing they did ask was about Sue. And it's, if she marries, would she leave the Fantastic Four?
Which, Matt, this raises a great transition to the next issue, because the next issue is number 19, Prisoners of the Pharaoh. And we have a pretty amazing cover with Rama Tut, the Pharaoh from the future, is how he's described on the cover.
Right.
And he's got Sue Storm there as his consort, at least. I don't know if Rama Tut has condescended to marry Sue. He might just have her as his consort. But we've got Sue maybe leaving the FF to stay in the past with the Pharaoh from the future, Matt.
Oh, yeah. This is probably my favorite issue, and we'll talk about it when we get to those rankings and stuff. But I loved this issue. I first went back and read it, or reread it, when we covered Legends of the Blue Marvel, because the technology they used there was from this issue.
Specifically, it was an issue, I think it was Captain America and the Mighty Avengers by Al Ewing that
Yes.
we read. So it prominently features Blue Marvel and one of his sons going into the aftermath of this and dealing with some of Ramatut's technology in a flashback in that. Listeners, you should check it out. We recently did an episode on the miniseries Legend of the Blue Marvel, which is the Blue Marvel's first appearance, and we followed him in the Al Ewing Avengers run, which is Mighty Avengers, Captain America, and Mighty Avengers, the Ultimates.
It's so interesting, too, because we go back to the previous Doctor Doom time machine. Then they try to relate it back. Is Rama Tut a future, ancestor's not the right word, is it? But future incarnation of Doctor Doom? Is he Doctor Doom? You don't know. And leaving that stuff open in this time period keeps it interesting.
Pretty quickly revealed in the pages of the Avengers who Rama Tut is, the future or the past version of. I'm actually not sure in its own personal timeline what he was first versus what he is later. But that'll be answered pretty quickly in Avengers. But you're right, it is an interesting thing here that they keep Rama Tut's identity quite open. I also really like the opening to this issue, like you're saying, of the FF storming into Latveria to take Doctor Doom's time machine, because they have to go investigate that they saw themselves in hieroglyphics on an Egyptian tomb.
Go back to thinking about the future of Marvel with all the time travel pieces. It's starting. The infancy of it is here. They're starting to question things like that already, this early on in the Fantastic Four run.
Speaking of stuff that's coming up, Matt, the next issue is number 20. So it sounds like we both agreed that Prisoners of the Pharaoh and Submariner versus the Human Race both belong in the great category, right?
They're excellent issues.
And then I wanted to ask about the next one. This is issue number 20, Mysterious Molecule Man. And I guess, do you think it fits in the great category, or is it merely in the okay? And also, in the last issue, we saw Rama Tut be introduced after you were experiencing him in the Ewing run, or at least his technology in the Ewing run. And now we're seeing the Molecule Man debut after you experienced his major role in Hickman's Avengers run and in Hickman's Secret Wars. So how did you like this version of the Molecule Man? And also, what did you think about the issue overall?
I really enjoyed the issue. I didn't know about the biological aspect of the Molecule Man and how it's difficult for him to manipulate things that have biological matter. That was a whole different appeal than what we read with Hickman stuff, but I'm assuming powers increase with time.
I wonder if that's dropped later on, because in the Hickman Avengers or in the Al Ewing Ultimates, that doesn't seem to come up. But maybe it's just not relevant to what's going on.
Right. With the wand, though, I feel he was meant to be this wizard villain for them to attack or fight. He was meant to be more magic-based.
Hindsight, he just seems an improved version of that fairly lame villain from, I think, the third issue called the Miracle Man.
Yes, they're similar. And honestly, I got them slightly confused on one of our previous episodes, thinking that we had already read through that, but we hadn't, because they're so similar. But with him having the wand here as part of it, it makes him seem like more of a magician.
which the Miracle Man also has that magician
Correct.
aesthetic in Fantastic Four 3.
I did like the Watcher design in this issue. It's less baby infantile looking. So I want to point that out.
It's the best you can do with a bad design. I love Jack Kirby and no one in my admiration for Jack Kirby, but sometimes not everyone can be a hit, and that Watcher design, that one is not a hit. So, Matt, we're going on to one of my absolute favorite issues of this run, number 21. I definitely think it should be in the great category, and that's a Hate Monger. And I guess I had to ask, going into this issue, did you know the true identity of Hate Monger?
I did not. I guess where they were going because I was thinking, okay, the time period they're in, what kind of comics were coming out at the time.
They're really playing up Reed and Ben being World War II. Also, you talked about there's a Nick Fury guest appearance.
Yeah, don't get excited. It's Nick Fury with no eye patch, and I forget anything before he becomes that Nick Fury.
He was Sergeant Rock before,
right?
Before he was the Master Spy, right?
What I do love about this issue, Bob, is that reading through this, it's so relevant today.
Disturbingly relevant.
You can show it to someone and not tell them what year it was from, and they'll be, oh, that sounds similar to what's going on now in the world.
I would not be shocked if the Twitter user for the Department of Homeland Security, or ICE, starts unironically posting hate monger panels from being like, this guy gets it, why don't you? And listeners, if you don't know who the hate monger is, it's Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, it's Hitler. When they reveal it at the end, and he's dead again, I guess.
For now.
He'll be back.
To quote that last Star Wars movie, somehow Hitler has returned. I did want to just say, in the original comics, there is an Amazing Spider-Man number 2 ad in this issue.
Oh, wow.
I thought was fun. Our next issue, Matt, is issue number 22, Return of the Mole Man. This one, I would probably just put in the okay. Would you be okay with that, or do you think this one is great?
I would definitely put it in the okay.
We'll say one thing almost happened. On 15, maybe I'm just dyslexic, but on 15, I initially thought Ben Grimm said, ya boy. And I almost lost my mind if Ben Grimm was saying ya boy in 1963. But that didn't actually happen. I misread it. My misreading is the difference between this being in the great or in the okay category.
Up until this point, we've all agreed they're all great.
I know there's things we don't love about the Hate Monger issue. On the whole, the Hate Monger issue, really choice.
I would put this on the okay category. The thing is, it just follows the whole thing of, okay, Mole Man has trapped the Fantastic Four. How will they get out of it? Nothing really amazing going on here.
But we do get something very important revealed about Sue Storm.
Yeah, we get her character development, Bob. She gets a force field.
Yeah, great character development.
She can also turn other people invisible, which was good. She got an upgrade to her powers.
Transitioning to a great issue, we've got the master plan of Dr. Doom, right? That's issue number 23. This definitely belongs in the great category, although there is a fair amount of cringe in the course of this, but still it belongs in the great category. It starts off like a Disney sitcom because the Fantastic Four are chasing a baby dinosaur that's escaped from a time platform that they've stolen. This is the first time we've seen it. Maybe not, but the other three members of the Fantastic Four are really questioning Reed's leadership. They're voting on who should replace Reed as the leader, and they each vote for themselves, which on the one hand is funny, but on the other hand, it does set up this dynamic where it's, oh, every other member of the FF is stupid, and Reed is the natural leader. We just need to defer to Reed at all times, which is one of the worst things about the Lee and Kirby run, is that dynamic.
There's a couple of panels here, Bob, that I want to point out. There's one panel that has Dr. Doom, where he's talking, he's got this terrible trio of people that he's collected, and they're all gangster.
Yeah, it's his evil gangster.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
It altered their genetics so that they now have powers, but they all had to take their shirts off, I guess, to do the transformation. They're all lined up next to each other, and Dr. Doom has his foot up on a stool. He's got that power pose. Then one of them was smoking a cigarette, and it's just...
Hey, man, Dr. Doom has been watching YouTube. He knows about dominance position.
It's just the funniest image. It stuck with me. It was so hilarious. The constant smoking in this issue with the bad guys. I don't know if at this time that maybe... I think smoking was pretty acceptable back then, but they were pushing bad guys smoking cigarettes.
For sure.
That does fit in, too, with one of the ways that the Human Torch is trapped. He's offered this car that he wants, or it's this amazing car that's supposed to be cool. He gets trapped inside of it by this guy, and he's lined it with a suit Human Torch can't escape. And if I have to read the word asbestos one more time in this whole run, that is the one way you kill the Human Torch. If you want to take the torch out, just cover it with asbestos. Anything you need, just have asbestos. It's so funny.
It's a multi-layer plan because you trap the torch, but even if the torch survives, he's going to have some serious lung issues.
Right.
Asbestos exposure.
Exactly.
For 30 years down the line, you get your revenge, even if he beats you today.
To continue, though, with what I did in the previous epic, Ben Grimm does return to his Ben Grimm form in this comic when he gets shot by the cosmic beam.
first time that happened in this collection?
in this collection.
It's definitely becoming less common because it was every other issue in the
Correct.
first collection.
Yeah.
And we were comparing it to Bruce Banner and the Hulk, almost having the transformation every issue.
I wanted to point out, too, in this issue, we have the return of Doom's flying belt, which is the way he's drawn flying, he keeps his arms by his side. That's how villains fly.
It's alpha posture.
It is.
Alpha
But
posture.
Doom's flying belt, I'm sure, was really cool back in the 60s, and probably every kid would want one. But at the same time, the way it's played out on the pages is hilarious. And then the last thing I want to point out, too, is the solar wave, which is, I feel, our first introduction into multiversal type stuff in the Fantastic Four. I have no clue where Dr. Doom ends up. It looks like he ends up in some far off cosmos somewhere. They call it a solar wave. I will give them credit, though. The way they escape it is going through a hole in the room. I mean, that's about it. There's a dumbwaiter door, and they go through to escape the solar wave of whatever cosmic entity Dr. Doom gets zapped into.
Interesting, like how much they use like weather and meteorological metaphors for cosmic stuff. Because you had Dr. Doom escaping on the meteor shower
Yes.
storm last collection, and yeah, in this one it's lost in the solar wave. But yeah, the way they visualize it is like this. There's like a little door that they can climb through to escape. And it's cool.
It was good for the time because it creates a very difficult and complicated idea and makes it so probably a kid could understand it. And that's why they probably use certain vocabulary with solar wave and the weather words they've heard of before instead of talking. I don't think multiverse is a thing at this time or multiple universes. I don't know how familiar people would be with that.
Well, to transition, I will say that the stuff with the room and the solar wave does a little bit feel to me it anticipates the movie 2001 that's going to come in a few years. And this next issue, Infant Terrible, number 24, is a very mid issue. I don't have a lot to say. I didn't think it comes off, but it also, in an interesting way, with a space baby, very much reminds me of what's going to come in 2001. On the one hand, I do think 2001 is like a shockingly original movie. And it'll have a big influence on later Kirby FF, but it is interesting that in some ways with like 23 and 24, Kirby's already anticipated.
I'll be honest with you, Bob. I hated this issue, and I would be fine putting it in the dumpster fire. But if you just want to put it in the okay column, I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, I didn't have the hate for it that you did, but I don't feel enough about it to strongly defend it, other than finding the alien space baby mildly interesting, although not at all compelling in execution.
The Infant Space Baby had already been done with the Molecule Man because Infant Space Baby could just do whatever he wanted.
And some would say the Watcher as well.
The Watcher, yeah. There was just so many things going on there that I've already seen. And then just for him to get zapped back to his planet, oh, it was an alien that got away, and oh, okay, come get your child. I didn't care for it much. I think that could have been written differently and not so much like the previous issues and things we'd seen.
Would you agree that the next issue, 25, Hulk versus Thing, would you put that in the great category?
Not as good as the next issue, but...
Oh, interesting. I actually preferred it to the next issue, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, Hulk versus Thing. This is the second time we've seen Hulk versus Thing.
Right.
We saw that in the first collection.
Fantastic Four number 12.
Thanks. Then basically the only thing, it was a fun Hulk versus Thing issue, and I wanted to flag that it had a Daredevil number 1 ad in the scan of the original I was looking at. It was cool.
I don't know this, Bob, but I guess his name has been changed so many times. Okay, Hulk was originally Bob Banner.
Do they call him Bob Banner in this?
Yeah, it's Bob Banner.
And I don't know if he was originally Bob Banner or if that was just a letterer or a scripter error.
Oh, okay.
It could be, but I want to say he was Bruce Banner originally, and that's just like a scripter error.
Must be it because he's Bob Banner. And...
I think his name, they even give him his official name as like Robert Bruce Banner to cover up the few times.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then,
but you might be right. It might have been Bob at first, and then I changed it to Bruce, but I feel like it was Bruce at first.
And in the 70s show, he was David Banner, so it just gets more confusing. And then you got...
I totally forgot about
that. But yeah, there wasn't, like you said earlier, there's not much to say about this issue other than Reed is out of commission because he gave himself a virus. But so you don't see much of him.
Many such cases.
Yes.
Many such cases. So moving into one of Matt's favorites, he would put it in the great. I would maybe put it in the mid, but I'm willing to let it go in the great out of deference for Matt's opinion. But we have Avengers Takeover. It's continued out of Hulk versus Thing from issue 25, and now we're in issue 26, Avengers Takeover. I did want to ask Matt, the two things that really stood out to me in this issue where we see Johnny Storm, who's wounded and wearing a bandage, but has the bandage still showing up in his torch form. Is that ridiculous or is that awesome? And likewise, we see the Wasp hitting the Hulk's inner ear equilibrium. Is that ridiculous or is that awesome?
Technically, based on the annual, the bandage should burn up, but was the bandage covered with asbestos, Bob? That's the question.
Oh, it's an asbestos bandage.
Yeah, duh. It's an
Clearly.
asbestos bandage. I think you didn't point that out, Bob. Come on now. And going back to the equilibrium thing, I think that's fine. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean,
I just thought it was very weirdly drawn, I guess.
it is weirdly drawn, but they did the best they could. Hulk talking so much throws me off in these 60s comics. It's not the usual Hulk stuff.
That's fair. The other thing that I really did, I guess I should put this in the grade, even in my own regard, because you have Sue Storm accidentally taking out Giant Man, and as a hater, I found that very satisfying.
Well, Bob, I thought Giant Man was hilarious in this entire issue because the number of panels they dedicate to him, most of them have him just popping pills. I didn't realize that was his MO back then, is that he has to take giant pills. Every panel has him putting one in his mouth.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was such a druggie either.
Yeah.
Used to.
You got Captain America in a super serum, you got Giant Man popping pills. This is like a whole drug concoction going on with the Avengers.
Yeah. So the next issue, Matt, is also a guest star issue. It's number 27. It's The Search for Submariner. And I don't know, man. This one's got some weird themes to it. Like, we see Namor, Reed Richards, and Doctor Strange in his astral form all do a lot of spy in this issue. I would say this is Namor is basically impersonating Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this issue. Not literally, but spiritually he is. And early in the issue, you see that Namor has this clam-shaped monitor that Namor is using to perv on Sue Storm. And it's disturbing both because Namor is spying on Stu, but it's also disturbing because of the shape, the clam shape of the thing he's spying on. It's weird.
This issue gets a horny award, Bob, because, I mean, the first page is Reed Richards hooked up to a VR rig looking at his, like, fantasy of Sue in a bathing suit, which was pretty weird. But what's worse is
Namor is an early adapter of Grok's erotic.
Exactly. And what's weird, Bob, is like they're able to visualize what he's seeing, and the Thing and her brother are watching. That's disturbing. Yeah, that bothered me. So I guess in the Namor thing you're referring to is just 3 pages later. So a lot of voyeurism going on.
On the bright side, we do see Ben Grimm juggle some Atlanteans, so the issue's definitely not a total loss. Ben Grimm juggling opponents is always great.
Now, as a Doctor Strange fan, Bob, did you appreciate Doctor Strange in this issue, or was it more a side note?
To me, it felt pretty side note. He doesn't feel that important, and I love Doctor Strange, but he doesn't seem so natural to me in Fantastic Four stories. A Doctor Strange Spider-Man team up always feels cool and right, especially because Ditko draws both of them. And to be honest, I should have paid more attention to this, but I didn't even really think about how Kirby was drawing Doctor Strange, because it is always interesting to see when Kirby is drawing a Ditko character like Spider-Man or Doctor Strange.
The blue uniform he has here, I don't know if that was his normal thing, but it really does blend in with the Fantastic Four. I don't know if that was intentional.
Yeah, I thought about that, but yeah, that's interesting. At some point, I should make you read an epic or two of those original Doctor Strange stories. They're beautiful, man.
That could be fun.
Matt, for number 28, We Have to Fight the X-Men. Amazing title. This is how you do a guest star issue. This is a great issue. I really liked it. And I did want to begin with the question, though, Matt. Do you feel like Mad Thinker puts an extra puff in his hair to humiliate his android and to humiliate the Puppet Master when he's teamed up with them?
Well, of course he does. He looks so ridiculous with his hair all poofed up like that. It makes me yearn for my days when my hair could do that.
So we have the Puppet Master take control of Professor X, and Professor X giving the X-Men orders to first go meet and pretend to be friends with, then fight the Fantastic Four.
But I always forget how militant the first issues of X-Men are. They're a military team, a group of teenagers just being told what to do, and if they don't do it, they're in trouble. This is what it always feels like. It's so different from your modern X-Men, but that aspect of this is interesting.
I do love the bonding scenes between the FF and the X-Men. We have Ben seeming to check out Warren Worthington's angel wings while Alicia's in the corner being jealous about it. I'll talk about Sue Storm's interaction later. We have Cyclops and Reed Richards bonding over being leaders of men. We have Bobby Drake and Johnny Storm have already teamed up for obvious reasons, right? So they know each other. I feel a little bad that Hank McCoy, he seems to be the only X-Man who doesn't have a friend. He's the only one who doesn't have a counterpart in the FF.
Yeah, Hank McCoy, though, I will say, I always have to remind myself that his big thing back then that was meant to attract readers to his presence was his brains, for one, but also he ping pongs off everything.
Yeah.
That was like the beast thing.
He's very Spider-Man in that way.
Yes.
Yeah. And Matt, I do have to say, once the fight starts, when we see Warren Worthington and Bobby Drake taking out Sue, it looks a little problematic.
It's extremely problematic, and Bobby Drake pulls out an ice lasso. How does that work? We'll get you with this ice lasso. One scary thing in this issue, Bob. Ben Grimm threatens to spank Marvel Girl.
That was rough.
It gets worse, though, because toward the end of the issue, when he actually does get a hold of her, he's got her in that position. He's not actually going to do it. You don't see it, but he's in that position and he hits Beast.
Matt, to move on to another superpowered team in issue number 29, it started on Yancey Street. We have the return of the Red Ghost and his Super Apes, some of my favorite Fantastic Four villains. And I enjoyed seeing the Super Apes get the jump on the Fantastic Four. We see a gorilla sucker punch Ben. We see the baboon pillowcase Johnny. I enjoyed all of that.
They got a chance to visit the Watcher's home, which is full of stuff that's weird and crazy. Yeah, but it is on the blue part of the moon, which is cool.
The Fortress of Solitude, isn't it?
Right, and I like that that's being introduced all the way back when. I just like seeing the origin and history of these things, which we were introduced to that previously, but going back to it, making it a setting they return to, I think that's good world building.
The next issue, so yeah, I would say the X-Men and the Red Ghost issues both can sit in the great. I also would put the next issue, the first appearance of Diablo, who's another one of my favorite FF villains. I know you didn't.
I don't care for LDL. It's just, I don't understand what he's supposed to be. He's the devil, but also kind of vampirish.
He's Spanish.
Yeah. I didn't dig him that much.
Then Annual 2 is the origin of Doctor Doom. That's an all-time classic. Honestly, we're not going to say much about it, but we could do just a short episode on Annual 2. It's a really important issue for Doctor Doom, really important issue for Fantastic Four, all-time classic issue.
It's great.
We end with a bit of a fizzle. We have another Mole Man issue, number 31, The Mad Menace of the Macabre Mole Man, which it's fine. And then we have number 32, which is my least favorite issue, Death of Igro.
I did not care as much for issue 31. I was okay with issue 32.
Because you like Franklin Storm.
No, I don't care for Frank. I was annoyed with Frank. I was annoyed the way Franklin Storm was shoot in for 31. Yeah. What happens in 32 with the later reveal of who the villain is in 32, I thought that was good. I was sitting there reading this going, they can't be using the same villain. Then boom, you find out, okay, it actually was the Super Skrull, which that made the issue better for me. I don't care for Franklin, but I didn't like the way he was shooting in that other issue. At least here we already had him established. I get what they were doing because you had to establish him more in that issue 31 because there would be no payoff in 32.
He deserves better than being associated with Franklin Storm.
So Bob does not like Franklin Storm.
All right, Matt, we've run through all the issues. Overall, what was your favorite?
All right, so I've got two. My favorite is the Avengers Takeover. I really enjoyed just seeing the Avengers in action with the Fantastic Four. You could see the difference between the way the teams were approached, the way they interacted. I enjoyed that early team up to take down a common enemy, the Hulk. And then Hate Monger, which we've already mentioned, that you could give to anybody and read, and it fits with what's going on now in the world. It was just it's time. It's great. It's well written. So either of those two issues are my favorite.
Haymonger definitely for me. I love that issue. And then, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not sure fully what it was about the Avengers takeover. Maybe it's just I don't like the Avengers that much, but it didn't hit for me.
Bob's like, I don't like the Avengers that much, but yet we've read how many Avengers comics.
Hey, I only like the Avengers when they're done by Al Ewing or John Hickman.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. So only those massive year-long runs. Yes.
That feature almost none of the classic Avengers.
Bob doesn't like the original Avengers. That's what he's trying to say.
I don't like Tony Stark. I don't like Hank Pym.
Do you like Captain America, Bob?
I think Cap's fine. I don't hate him.
Bob, if we go to the least favorite issue, I'm giving it to Infinite Terrible, which is number 24. And I also didn't really care much for the Diablo issue either, number 31.
Oh, man, you're hurting my heart with that one. I love Diablo. But you also said number 31, and I said number 32, the two Franklin Storm issues. I'd be willing to meet you on number 31 if you just want to, just to disrespect Franklin Storm.
That's fine. I'm good with it. And I really do think that's part of it, and just shoehorning him in.
Yeah, at least 32 kills him.
Right, which tells you about that plot in itself. It's very quick and not too emotional.
So, Matt, who is your favorite Fantastic Four member in these issues?
You're going to not agree with this, but I like the way Reed is portrayed in these issues. He's becoming more of that jackass type who's super smart. He's not aware of how to handle his relationship with Sue. Instead of treating her as an equal, he's treating her more as a child in a sense, even though he's in love with her. His constant failures with Ben Grimm, trying to get Alicia's eyesight back, his failures there. He never really has any scientific wins, but he's supposed to be the smartest guy in the room. I mean, he does solve a lot of the problems to defeat the villain, but it's always something crazy high tech. We start to see more of his big guns and things he creates. We start to see the machines he runs on the different Fantastic Four members to study their powers and to try to test their limits. His characters developed way more in this particular epic than in the previous one.
That makes sense. I'll just go ahead and explain that to me, Reed was my least favorite in these issues, and it really gets into like Reed just being a dick.
See, that's my favorite part about him.
I don't think Stan realizes he's writing Reed as a dick. At least not as much as you. You make a good point about Reed being inept in his relationship to Sue and failing to cure Ben, but beyond that, I think just interpersonally, Reed is awful in these issues, and the comic doesn't seem to realize that. Fan scripting doesn't seem to realize that.
That's why I like him. I think that's why I like it.
Well,
it makes him interesting.
Let me give you a counterpoint. Setting all of this aside, even if you're right about all of this, there's an opening splash page in issue number 24 where Reed's in a trampoline form, and it's disgusting and it's haunting. And I gotta say, Reed is my least favorite member of the FF in these issues just because of that one panel.
And see, my counterpoint to that, Bob, is that one of the biggest complaints of the most recent Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four First Steps, was that Reed did not alter his body enough, do all the stretchy stuff he does in the comics.
That was not Bob's complaint.
That was not your complaint, but I just want to say that was one of the major complaints. I will say I understand them now because looking back at these earlier issues, yes, that dude was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. He was literally Plastic Man. And some of the things he does are creatively drawn. The one you're describing is pretty nasty, but there's even a fight with the Beast where Beast literally looks like he sticks his head straight in Reed's ass. It looks hilarious.
Very. I think the Fantastic Four recent movie was going more for how Reed's done in the Mark Waid and the Hickman runs, where he doesn't use his powers very much. His powers is mind. The stretching is pretty incidental.
I agree, and that is the direction. Anybody that had read classic Fantastic Four, if they went into the film thinking that's what they were going to get. You did get a lot of that, though, in the first, I guess, the 2007 film. Mm-hmm. He's more stretchy, malleable.
Interesting. Well, Matt, so Reed's your favorite. Reed's my least favorite. In these issues, my favorite is Sue Storm, and definitely these issues are really, really sexist to Sue. And ironically, I'm going to say Sue is my favorite member in these issues for a very sexualized reason, which is in the Hate Monger issue, Sue tries on a black wig and she compares herself to Liz Taylor and Cleopatra. And oh boy, that gets me.
There you go, Bob.
I'm more a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf man than a Cleopatra man. But yeah, Sue Storm and a Liz Taylor wig, hubba hubba. Also, Matt, Jean Grey agrees with me. In the X-Men issue, she tells Sue how hot she is.
Well, Bob, what did you think of the pinups of Sue and Alicia? You had the other members of the Fantastic Four, but they were all using gadgets and stuff and looking cool. Whereas these were more sexualized pinups. Do you think people actually pull these out of the comics and put them up on their wall?
I hope not. That's pretty disturbing, Matt. So who is your least favorite FF member in these issues?
Honestly, Human Torch. Terrorizes Ben Grimm.
You're just trying to raise awareness about the dangers of asbestos by saying this.
Anytime if there's ever a problem, you just throw some asbestos on it and he's done for it. That seems to be what's going on in this particular set of issues. And his constant taunting of Ben Grimm is funny up to a point, but it gets ridiculous after a while. Ben could be like losing the love of his life or something, and Johnny's making fun of the way he looks. I'm like, dude, chill for a minute. Like, even Reed points that out at one point.
Well, Matt, who is your favorite villain in these issues?
Rama Tut. Like I said before, I like the idea of the time displacement piece. You don't know if he is related to Dr. Doom or how that plays out. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to have to be really basic and give it to Dr. Doom, especially for you already pointed out some of Doom's power poses in the master plan of Dr. Doom. But there's one panel in 23 when he's reclining after he's just banished the terrible trio to the purple dimension. And oh man, that's a great pose. I love Doom just reclining, feet up, smoking. It's great. I will say it was hard for me to not give it to my beloved Red Ghost or to give it to Diablo. I really like both of those, but Doom's power lounging, that just won the day for me.
Well, Bob, my least favorite villain was Diablo. hands down. He's so forgettable. I'm not even counting the infant thing as a villain, though. Even though the
If you
gallery does.
would it be worse than Diablo?
Oh, yes, the infant character would be worse, but I don't
I
really consider that a
I
villain.
take comfort in that. I
Okay,
take comfort
well,
in
I'm
that.
glad you do, but your least favorite was,
Franklin Storm, which
yeah.
we've already kind of been over. And then who was your favorite guest star, Matt?
I really love seeing the X-Men with the Fantastic Four. I know I mentioned the Avengers as well earlier, but the X-Men counteract that because it's a younger team. You've got characters who match up with the FF to some degree. Then the way that Professor X is handled so well with the Puppet Master, that's a story that you could tell today and it would still make some sense. You could still make a comic out of that.
To
Right?
leave the X-Men as your choice, but I'm really tempted. I put Doctor Strange for mine, but now I don't know why, because I was just telling you I thought that use of Doctor Strange was pretty mid. So maybe I should go back and reread that Doctor Strange issue and see what if I was glomming on to something, or maybe I should go with the X-Men, or maybe even Spider-Man. That's a great story, although it's a reprint, so maybe I don't give it full marks just for being a reprint.
I did not dislike Doctor Strange at all, but I'm not really a fan of him, which, yeah, you know more about the character than
Yeah,
I
I just
do.
can't remember if there's anything in the issue that really got me going as a Doctor Strange fan.
Doctor Strange can be everywhere all the time. That dude was in Atlantis and he was in the Fantastic Four headquarters. He was everywhere. Apparently, that's his power to some degree, just being wherever he wants to be whenever.
We've already talked about my least favorite guest stars, and that's all the members of the Avengers who are not the Hulk. I really
Yeah.
don't care for those guys. But who was your least favorite guest star?
I'm just going to go with Colonel Fury, mainly because I forget that he even makes an appearance. And he doesn't play that important of a role in the story.
Yeah, it's pretty forgettable. Well, do you want to run down your favorite panels right quick?
I've got three that I want to point out. In issue number 22, Ben is on four different landline phones taking complaints about the Fantastic Four and what goes on in their building. And that was so much more human, which was what made Marvel Comics so great.
Poor beleaguered Ben.
You've got these cosmic issues going on. You've got all these villains. Then they're having to deal with the people calling saying they're making too much noise doing what Fantastic Four do. I thought it was hilarious and it was well drawn. Issue 23, Doctor Doom and the solar wave piece where he falls into the solar wave and he's yelling, help. The whole solar wave idea was great and all the panels that included that piece. In issue number 28, there's one part where Reed gets trapped up in this machine that winds up a hose. It's a hose retractor thing, but he steps on it. There's something about the panel that's so funny. That's how Reed Richards gets taken out by something being wound up. I thought that was brilliant. Then one other thing I didn't put in the notes that I did want to point out, the scenes of Atlantis are so well drawn all across every time you see Atlantis. I thought there's so much color and the characters, they pop out at you. They did a phenomenal job with that.
Oh, it's interesting that you dig Kirby's Atlantis so much. In my mind, I don't remember it fondly, but maybe I'm just fixated on Namor's clam-shaped
Yeah.
device. Maybe that just crowds out everything.
It's the art and it's the color choices they use
Yeah.
for all the characters that stands out against making Atlantis this beautiful place that you wouldn't want destroyed. Someplace that Namor can be proud of, not just this dark, underwater, dingy area.
Namor's got neighborhood pride.
He does. It's a beautiful nation down there that they're accidentally bombing.
I picked two. One's a sci-fi image, one's a horror image. The sci-fi image is in issue number 29, which we see Kirby start to incorporate a photograph of the moon into his pencils, which we'll see that a lot as the comic advances. And I don't think we'd seen him do that earlier than this issue, although maybe he did do something in the first collection and I don't remember it.
It really is eye-catching. When you're reading through these comics and you find those particular pages, you're like, oh, wow, what did he do there? And you stop.
Yeah, maybe in the earlier Red Ghost issue from the first epic, World's Greatest Comic Magazine, because they go to the moon in that one to put in some moon photos in the art there. But yeah, it's very cool here. Then I also really just wanted to flag in Annual 2, which is the origin of Doctor Doom. We have this great panel of Doom and Boris walking into the storm, and Doom's cape is fluttering in the wind, and Boris's scarf is fluttering in the wind. It's a cool little gothic image.
All right, well, Bob, we're going to, I guess sometime in the next 6 months, we'll cover volume 3.
We can debate this off mic, but I was actually going to suggest we get on a more accelerated time track, a couple of weeks maybe. But we can.
Oh, wow, Bob wants me reading a lot. Oh, gosh, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm good with that, though. I mean, just look forward. We will be covering volume 3 at some point. I'm game for just continuing on until we run out of issues or whatever, but we'll see.
Oh, we definitely won't keep going past Kirby because the stuff past Kirby is not worth it, in my opinion. We've got, I think, 4 more volumes of Kirby Fantastic Four.
Galactus makes his first appearance in the next.
Yeah, next collection is The Coming of Galactus. Yeah.
So there you have it.
Yeah, so we've got The Coming of Galactus, we've got The Mystery of the Black Panther, we've got The Name is Doom, and then the last collection, which will be very weak, is Atlantis War.
Well, Bob, I've enjoyed going through this. We seem to appreciate most of these issues. I don't think there was nothing. I wanted one in the dumpster fire, honestly.
We're about to get to the high point of the run with Doctor Doom and then Black Panther right after Doctor Doom. So, yeah, it's cooking with gas, man. It's cooking with gas. So this has been Uncanny Tracks. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. We were covering the master plan of Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four Epic Volume 2. Join us soon for more comics coverage, and have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.